I've tried to prepare myself, not having reps with a lot of these guys, that my footwork marries Drew's, so everything times up the same with those guys. And I think that so far it's made for a smooth transition.
Obviously, my role has changed this week, but the preparation and the hard work throughout the week has not. So carrying on that same mentality that I've always had this year, always being ready to answer the phone when it rings, and it's ringing, so ready to answer.
Big challenge for both of these quarterbacks, and Taysom Hill has had 3 weeks of experience now to get himself more comfortable and, more importantly, to get the receivers more comfortable. You have to work on the timing. You don't get reps with the starting receivers when you're the backup. Taysom Hill told me after the win over the Falcons on Sunday that that's been one of the reasons why his passing has improved. More time working with the receivers, working after practice with the receivers, taking the mental reps necessary to get himself, as he said, to perform like Drew Brees does, so the receivers are comfortable with the offense. And that gives him a huge advantage because for Hill, it's game number 4. For Hurts, it's game number 1 on the fly, 1 week of prep, Peter. And for Hurts, look, this is something that Jason Kelce said earlier this week. It's been a total failure for the Eagles offense. I really don't think swapping out Carson Wentz for Jalen Hurts is going to change all that much for an offense that is bad across the board.
I don't either. But I think there are some times where your franchise quarterback, and I still believe he will be that in 2021, although we can discuss the alternatives. I think the best thing for your franchise quarterback is to stop taking the physical and media and mental beating that Carson Wentz has taken over the last 3 months. Sometimes you just have to say, I don't know what the alternative is. We don't know about Jalen Hurts, but you know what? This guy needs to sit down. And it's time for him to sit down. I think Doug Peterson made not just the right sporting call, he made the humane call, because it just felt so much. I had Greg Cosell on my podcast this week. Everybody knows how smart Cosell is watching tape. Well, I said to him, it looks like Carson Wentz, in my opinion, is seeing ghosts. And so everybody says, well, what does that mean? Well, when you take the snap back from center and immediately you're looking to bail out, you're not staying in the pocket. And that's because, he's got so many issues in pass pro. And that has been his issue the entire year. So it's really hard to blame it all on Carson Wentz. But you can see now that his quickness to get out of the pocket is preventing pass routes from developing. So you never can really tell whether anybody was going to be open or not. They don't have time to see. By that time, he's bailed out. And I just think, it has built on itself. So now you bring a quarterback in whose game, in part, is his feet. And Carson Wentz, his game, in part, was his feet in 2017. But now, instead of using his feet to make plays, he's just using his feet as an escape mechanism. Let's see if Jalen Hurts can do any better. And the one other thing I'll say about Hurts, Mike, he has played at the highest level of college football in 2 specific programs where all eyes are on him. And I think that's going to hold him in good stead. Andy Reid always used to laugh about if I would ever say, what about all the media crap in Philly? WIP and all this stuff. He goes, who cares? and I think to some degree, Jalen Hurts is probably going to feel the same way.
Well, and so my question becomes, especially in light of the market, where the fans are very passionate, where the Super Bowl from 3 years ago bought no one a pass. If anything, it increased the zeal with which the fan base wants to pursue number 2 and number 3 and beyond. How do you press the reset button for Carson Wentz? If Jalen Hurts plays well, it's over for Carson Wentz. If he doesn't play well, if he fails, then maybe there's a way to get people to understand that it wasn't Carson, and that perhaps you go back to 0-0 and next year you give him another opportunity? They don't have a lot of flexibility because of the contract that has $25 million fully guaranteed already for 2021. Another $15 million for 2022 becomes fully guaranteed the middle of March of 2021. They are stuck with Carson Wentz financially. I just don't know after you bench him, Peter, how you get to a point where you can hit that reset button and the fans will buy in and he will have an opportunity to rebuild himself without crumbling under the weight of the same pressures that have crumbled him now.
Joe Banner said something interesting this week, Mike, I thought, about the contract, that basically no contract is untradeable. Now, this contract obviously would be really uncomfortable for the trading team, of course, and the acquiring team. But if you change some of that money into a signing bonus and have it basically massaged over the life of the deal, it's still very bad, but it's not heinous, and it's not $59 million. But I'll just say one thing about the way this thing right now, I believe, is sculpted. Some team out there is going to have to want Carson Wentz. And the only team I see that could potentially want Carson Wentz is the Indianapolis Colts. Now, you might say, well, geez, they're doing fine. They'll figure out the quarterback. Maybe it won't be Jacoby Brissett. Probably won't be Phillip Rivers, but they'll figure it out. Look, Chris Ballard, the general manager of the Colts, and Frank Reich, the head coach, want a long-term quarterback. They don't want Scotch tape fixes. And so my whole thought about this is, I'm not saying the Colts are going to be interested, but I believe, knowing Chris Ballard, knowing Frank Reich, especially Ballard, that he will study this situation fervently and that he will look at this situation and he'll say, does it make any sense for us to even consider it? But finally, Mike, the one thing I think that's going to be trouble in this whole thing is the Eagles have to say blandly, that Carson Wentz is our guy. They cannot make it seem like they are going to talk to anybody. There's got to be an omerta over any sort of discussion that you would have with the Indianapolis Colts or with any team, that no one involved in any of those discussions would even admit it to their wives, that it's got to be totally silent. That's the only way I think it could work, because if Carson Wentz finds out, if anybody in Philadelphia finds out that they've been trying to deal him, then bang, the thing could all blow up.
The one thing you can't do is cut Carson Wentz, because you've got the $25 million obligation in 2021. Now, there's offset language, but no one's going to pay him $25 million. Not only are you going to take the huge cap hit for the acceleration of the signing bonus that he was paid and the other guarantees he was given, you carry that salary. The trade isn't as impossible as it was for Brock Osweiler out of Houston, where the Texans had to actually give the Browns a second-round pick to take on the $16 million fully guaranteed salary that Osweiler was due to make in 2017. But this is the challenge from the Eagles' perspective. They're going to be carrying a $34 million cap number next year for Wentz, whether he's on the team or not. But if he's not on the team, you do avoid that $40 million in new cash obligations that would attach. Can you get a team like the Colts to say, we'll take Wentz at $25 million in a cash obligation for this year, with or without a signing bonus that spreads out the cap hit? The cap hit's not the issue. They signed Phillip Rivers this year to a one-year, $25 million contract. Back in March, if you had said to any Colts fan, you can have Phillip Rivers for 1 year, $25 million, you can have Carson Wentz for 1 year, $25 million, they all would have said, we'll take Wentz. Now, there may be a different attitude this year, but there's one Colts fan who matters, and that's Frank Reich. Frank Reich was the offensive coordinator when Wentz was an MVP finalist before he suffered the torn ACL 3 years ago today. If Reich doesn't want him, that's the ultimate litmus test. Sims and I were talking about this earlier in the week. If Reich doesn't want him, then no one should want him, Peter.
Yeah, I agree. But I think Frank Reich will want him. That's just my gut feeling. And if Frank Reich does want him, then it's a matter of, what would the Eagles take? Would they need to have what they would consider fair compensation? Or would they just want to say, look, we want to do a solid for Carson Wentz. It just didn't work out. And Mike, you said it. There's a lot of people who would say it really doesn't matter what Jalen Hurts does in the next 3 weeks because this is going to all be about Carson Wentz. Well, I would disagree with that a lot. I think if Jalen Hurts plays well in the last 3-4 weeks of the season, however much he plays, if he plays well and they look at him as being a good quarterback behind a scotch tape, leaky offensive line, geez, what's he going to do when he gets to be behind a better performing line? And one other thing, what is the comp that a lot of people made when Jalen Hurts was drafted? The comp was Dak Prescott. And I'm not saying in any way, shape, or form that Jalen Hurts is ever going to be Dak Prescott. But they're guys who play well in the pocket, who also can move out of the pocket either to gain yards or to throw the ball on the move. And so to me, I think if you use that, maybe as your model, it's a little bit too much. But if you use that just to keep in mind, this is the style of quarterback that Jalen Hurts is going to be. And if he can be that today and in the future and prove that he can be that style of quarterback, I think that's going to appeal to the Eagles.
Quarterback issues in Philadelphia that date back to 2016, quarterback issues in Chicago dating to 2017 have created a situation where GM, head coach, maybe both are on the hot seat.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.